everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Famed attorney Benjamin Crump, in a recent interview, described the eerie similarities between the murder of Trayvon Martin and Ahmaud Aubrey. Both were killed in February, Trayvon on February 26, 2012, and Ahmaud on February 23, 2020. Both would have been 26 years old had they lived. Both were accused of burglary. Both were unarmed, and both were murdered by white men who advance a self-defense, stand-your-ground argument. How do we stop the madness? Plus, what's opening up the economy and the race for the president? We're going to talk about all of it on the Another View Roundtable right after this news from NPR.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. We hope you and yours continue to be safe and continue to practice social distancing, washing your hands, wearing a mask in public, and staying home as much as possible. Even though Virginia will begin to reopen the economy on May 15th, the virus is still with us, and we need to continue to be vigilant and to stay safe. So I want to start today's show with an apology and a correction for something I said on last Thursday's show. I congratulated Dr. McKinley Price on being named the new president of the African American Mayors Association. I said, and I quote, "Mayor Price is the first African American to be elected mayor in the city of Newport News." Well, that's not true. And I thank you listeners for letting me know. Actually, Mrs. Jessie M. Ratley was the first African-American mayor of Newport News. In 1970, she was elected to the Newport News City Council and was the top vote getter in subsequent elections. In 1976, she was selected by City Council as vice mayor of the city. And in 1986, at the time of re-election to her fifth term in office, she was elected by fellow council members to serve as mayor, the first Black and the first woman to hold the position. Mayor Price is the first African American to win a citywide election for mayor. Words matter. Truth matters. And as a Hampton Roads transplant, I continue to learn the rich history of this area. So thank you, audience, for teaching me. And one quick community note, if you're looking to do some exercise and help out a great cause, why not join the Project Life's Journey organization on their virtual 5K Race in Place. It's Saturday, May 16th at 9 a.m. They're raising money to help replenish the food pantry shelves at the Wesley Community Center in Portsmouth. To find out more, go to projectlifesjourney.org. And I'm sure they would appreciate your support. So now let's meet our roundtable. She's Virginia's relationship expert and the host of the Lyons Den on WHOV-FM, Alvean Lyons. Hey, Alvean.
Hey, everybody.
How are you?
I am wonderful and so glad that we're back together in this new virtual world.
Absolutely.
I wish our audience can see this, but we can see each other.
Yes, we're going to talk about that in just a moment, as a matter of fact. She's in charge of the money for the city of Norfolk City Treasurer, Daun Hester. Hey, Daun.
Hey, everybody.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Good to see you. She's been busy teaching online since the pandemic and hasn't missed a beat. NSU political science professor Carol Pretlow. Hey, Carol, how are you?
Oh, fine. Busy as always.
Oh, that's fantastic. We are glad that you're busy and glad you're doing well. And she's an entrepreneur and comedian, and she has her own talk show online. Allison Moore. Hey, Allison, how are you?
Hey, y'all. Hey, I'm trying to make somebody save me, please.
Well,
I hate it here.
I tell you what, we tried something different this time because, as you know, having four voices plus mine and trying to conduct a full conversation without seeing each other is a little difficult. So what we did was we set up a Zoom call so that we could see each other while we're on our phones talking so we could bring the audio to the radio. How about that? And the funny thing to me was the millennial of the group, the one that's supposed to know all about technology, had the most trouble. What's that all about, Allison?
I just feel like we should talk about when you're going to throw shade. Because if you want to do it, put some respect on my name. I actually recommended that we do this last month.
Yes, you did.
And then the boomer come with this, well, we can't do that. I'm like, okay, well, never mind then. All right, well, don't even worry about it.
You are absolutely right. And then I thought about it and I was like, okay, let's try it the millennials way. So there we are. Here we are, right? We're all together. So that's what's most important. All right. So ladies, first of all, how are each of you doing? And as you continue to navigate your way through this pandemic, Daun, how you doing? How are things? And if anything changed for you?
No, everything is good. Work is good. Been busy in the office. Home is great. Family's good. So
Good.
we all right.
Good. Excellent. How about you, Allison?
Oh, this is terrible.
Allison?
I hate it.
You hate it? Allison?
Yeah, I don't like it.
You don't like the
You can't hear me?
pandemic? Yeah, we can hear you.
I was gonna say, you don't want to hear me complaining.
No,
I
no,
hate
no.
it here. Let me out. I don't like it. I don't like nothing about it. Please be free. Somebody help.
How are the kids doing? How's homeschooling coming?
Oh, that's even worse. That is worse.
Oh my.
I'm just like, you know what? We just gonna be entrepreneurs. You know what I'm saying? Y'all just gonna have to sell something around the house and figure it out. This is a challenge for me. I don't like it.
Oh my goodness. How about you, Alvean?
I'm good. I just am struggling very badly with being able to balance work and not being in work. Because, at least when you went to the office, there was a cutoff time for your day.
Yeah.
But when your office is your house, it is a lot harder to figure out when your day should end. So as you would think as someone who does life coaching and everything else, I would get this work-life balance thing down. I am failing miserably.
I think all of us are experiencing that. That's for sure. What about you, Carol? How is the end of the school year for you?
Well, it's been different. I miss my babies, my students, and I never thought I'd say that, but I miss them talking to me and complaining to me and just seeing them. I have time to do a lot of the other stuff that I like because I love to read, and so I have time for that, but it's kind of lonely not having the students and my colleagues around.
Wow. Well, you guys know Virginia is supposed to be reopening as of the 15th, which is tomorrow. Most of Virginia, with the exception of Northern Virginia, will enter into phase 1 of the reopening. But African-American legislators have asked the governor not to move so quickly. Are we moving too fast? What do you think, Alvean?
Well, I would say that there are some things that we have to be mindful of. And I respect and appreciate our governor in, the fact that as a neurologist, a pediatric neurologist, there's a level of understanding he seems to have around the medicine of it all, the potential medically for our community. So sometimes I feel like you have to have somebody who can sometimes save us from ourselves. Sometimes we want to do things. We want to run back out. We're humans. We want as much normalcy as we possibly can, but not at the consequence of anyone's life. And we're watching new things happen with children in particular in response to COVID that is just another new question mark. And there are risks that people can choose to take, but we are the adults in the room. We are responsible for ensuring the safety of our children who do not get a chance to vote or voice their own fears, experiences, or hurt in a lot of ways. So I understand the importance of opening up the economy. I am personally, as a small business owner, affected by what's going on. So I'm not saying this from an ivory tower of financial privilege. I am saying this as a person who understands that there are real consequences that go along with the decisions that we make. And there's the one kind of I'm sorry I would never want to have to tell is one that has to do with the life of another.
Okay. Daun, what do you think about the fact that we're reopening and the Black legislature has said, hey, can you pay attention because African Americans are the ones with the low paying jobs. They're the ones who are out there on the front lines. And with the disparities that are happening, they're the ones that are catching this virus more frequently.
Well, I totally agree with that. I need to say, though, I can't hear anything Alvean is saying, so I
Okay,
don't want to repeat.
No problem. You
I
just
don't
go
wanna
ahead.
repeat.
That's fine. And we're working on that.
Okay.
Mhm.
But they are right. We know that Black and brown people are the ones who are, impacted the most. We have the most deaths across the country. And since we don't have the testing that we need and the rules put in place for opening up our offices or opening up our restaurants and places of leisure, or just opening up our businesses, I don't know that that it's clear enough. But we know they're essential workers, so they have to go to work. Mm-hmm. And then what are we going to do to make sure that they are safe and if they do get sick, that they're not adding to their bills because of health insurance and all those type of things. Mm-hmm. I know the city, I know the state needs to open. I'm glad that, I trust the governor because I know he's working from science. So I do trust him. I'm glad he gave Northern Virginia a pass in time for them to get their numbers better. I am glad that I can go get a haircut tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. I'm the first one. I'm the first one in the chair, so I get this hair off my head.
Mine is on Saturday at 4:30. I feel you.
Okay, see? Yeah. So it is a challenge.
Yeah.
People have to work, and I don't know if there's a right answer to any of this, but we still have to follow those rules, stay safe, wear masks, wash your hands, and all those things.
Right, and that's the other thing, Allison, want to get your opinion on this, because we do have even though the economy is reopening, that does not mean that we just get to run out and just go back to the way we were and stop doing the social distancing and so forth.
Right, absolutely. I mean, and I'm on the end of my livelihood largely depends on the ability for a bunch of people to be together. And even still in that, I'm just like, y'all have a seat, sit down somewhere, because I don't want to be sick. And I don't want this to get worse than what it has to be. And I'm already seeing a lot of friends and family being affected by losing people that they love, the depression and anxiety that's through the roof based on or because people have to go to work with, in these circumstances or situations. So I really am an advocate of, if you don't have to be out, don't go out, especially those that look like us, and especially in a situation where, we may be the last. The unfortunate truth is that we may be the last to get a hospital bed, to get a ventilator. Like, that stuff is really real. How you get around it, I the other end of it is I get it, because I want to get paid too. I had plans and dreams as well. I want to eat. I miss some of my little things I was doing, but we just gotta have a seat. But I hate it here.
She is just miserable at home. I tell you what.
I am miserable.
Carol, what do you think? And I want to ask a question of all of you, because this has been something that people have been talking about in the community, and that is that some feel that there's been this big push to reopen the community and reopen the economy so quickly, and wonder if people would be as so cavalier about the whole idea of lives being lost if the majority of the people who were not dying from this disease and not catching this disease were not people of color. In other words, if these were white people and this was happening to them in greater numbers, do you think that there would be a difference in the way that we're approaching reopening the economy? And I'm going to ask Carol first, and then Alvean, I saw you shaking your head.
Well, I try to be objective and non-biased. And it's very difficult because I've seen all these examples of times when things did hit the majority of community where it was instant action. And then when it happened to us, not so much. And so I am very reticent. I hate to say this, but I think that we're the last on the agenda. Always.
Alvean? Go ahead, Carol. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
That might be because of my age that I feel that way, and I've been through the desegregation process and the whole idea of equality and all of that. But then when we have a crisis like this, we're usually the last to be given attention to. And I'm sorry, that might be a personal bias.
Okay, Alvean?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I can say that Carol's perspective really is just about personal bias as much as it is the history of America. We just have not done a great job as a country in making sure that there's equity in the way we care for each other. There is definitely, we can look at the numbers. It's not an opinion. We're not debating, right versus left, progressive versus conservative, men versus women. If we just look at the numbers tell a story all by themselves that clearly indicate that we're disproportionately affected in communities of color of virtually everything. So you and I have had conversations before, Barbara, where we've talked about the fact that, when America gets a cold, the Black community gets pneumonia. We get an exaggerated form of almost everything. And most of the time, it's a byproduct of the fact that we are profoundly vulnerable financially. So it does not allow us a lot of leverage to be able to access certain kinds of things. And we're presumed certain kinds of ways. So in places where one can, where two people enter and you don't necessarily know the numbers, you don't know that one is rich or poor, unfortunately, the race disparities, just by virtue of appearance, have a tendency to take a front seat or at least a lead leg. So it's unfortunate, but it's one of the realities that we're still working on in the United States of America.
Daun, are you disappointed that it's become politicized? I mean, because there's talk of, Republican governors are handling things differently, and so therefore their states don't have as many, and they can open up and all of that. It just seems like there's more to it than the absolute care and concern about people's lives.
I have been concerned about this being politicized, but the past 3.5 years have been politicized. So that, is just a buildup of what we have been living under for the past 3.5 years. And the few who are out rallying in certain states, when they get sick, we won't hear about it, I don't think, because they're not going to want to let people know that these groups have gathered of people and now people are sick and I don't want anybody to pass. I don't care what color they are, but they're sick. And so, but they're putting themselves in these positions, I guess, thinking that they're vulnerable and won't be able to. But everything in our sphere right now is political from the federal level. And, we've got to deal with that. And that's why we have to take our own precautions. So when the world opens up, y'all go ahead. Yes, Allison, we're going to stay home a little bit longer until we know that it's better or we get that contact tracing and we can get our test at least once a week, like some people get it once a day.
Allison, go ahead. You wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I think, when you ask the question, would it be different? Would the response from whites be different if their communities were affected the way that ours was? I think so, absolutely. And we saw that with drugs, right? With the crack versus the opiate type of situation. When it was Black folks strung out and their communities disrupted significantly over crack, it was just Black people crackheads. But then once white people got into opiates, it was, we have to do something to help each other. So hold on, an addiction is an addiction. But, it looks like that the addiction is different or requires different response depending on who's addicted. And so now we see the same thing here. I think if COVID-19 were affecting some of those different type of economies, then the response would be, we would not be opening in some of the areas that we are now. And it's sickening and frustrating.
I hate it here.
Girl, we're going to get you out of the house. You need to go take a walk so that you can get some fresh air. You'll be okay. We promise you will be okay. All right, I want to move on to Ahmaud Aubrey. Once again, an unarmed African-American man murdered by two white men, but no arrest until a video of the incident went viral and public pressure was brought to bear. I want to listen now to what attorney Benjamin Crump, an attorney for the Aubrey family, had to say about the similarities between this case and Trayvon Martin.
When you think about the fact that both of them were killed in the month of February, Trayvon on February 26, 2012, and Ahmaud on February 23rd, 2020, the fact that both of them would have been 26 years old this year had they still been living. The fact that both of them were accused of burglary, even though there was no evidence to support anything of the sort. The fact that both of their killers had guns, yet they were unarmed, and both of their killers are advancing some type of self-defense, stand your ground argument. The fact that both of their killers, Trayvon Martin killer, got to go home and sleep in his bed at night after he shot and killed him in that gated community in Sanford, Florida, alleging some type of burglary allegation. And Ahmaud Aubrey, his killer, shot and killed him, and they got to go home and sleep in their beds at night after advancing some kind of allegation about burglary in the Satina Shores community in Brunswick, Georgia. The fact that both the prosecutors in the cases in Sanford, Florida, the local prosecutor recused himself because of some alleged conflict of interest. Then in Brunswick, Georgia, the local prosecutor recused herself because of some alleged conflict of interest. And then you look, and this is the final thing, you have evidence of a pursuit, objective evidence of a pursuit in both cases. With Trayvon, you have audio evidence. We hear the chase, and you hear the shot that kills Trayvon. Well, the big difference in Ahmaud Aubrey, we get to physically see the pursuit with our eyes in that horrific video where they chase him and then they kill him with that shotgun being pumped. And so that is the big difference in these cases. We now have ocular proof of what took place in the killing of Ahmaud Aubrey, and it is reminiscent of what we would have imagined happened in the 1920s, but this is 2020, and we're seeing it happen in America.
Alvean, your response.
I always, I must admit that I have still avoided watching the video. I see it surface all over the place, and I just have not wanted to watch it. Even slight clips of it, I just have not sat all the way through because I have an 18-year-old brown child and who goes skating and rides his bike and runs all the time. And so the idea that even with nearly 2 doctorates, representing a higher portion of the economic class in the United States of America, being Christian, it doesn't matter what all of my demographics are. It does not absolve me from the fear every Black woman has, every Black mom has for her Black son. Like, it still doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much achievement. There is not a single neighborhood in America that my white brothers and sisters cannot go into and be okay. Not any neighborhood anybody would want to go into. But when we achieve, even in our achievement, there are places we can't go because we would be the only, or we would be unusual inside of the space, which changes the way that people relate to us. So the idea that there is no level playing field for us as people of color, particularly when you start talking about our men of color, it's a terrifying notion when you're married to a Black man and you have Black children, and your Black children have Black friends. And those Black friends, they go hang out too. So if it's not your kid, you're worried about the other kids that you love. So, I just want to know what it's like to be like my white friends, to never have to think about those things when their kids go outside of the house. They have normal teenager stuff to worry about. They don't think about this stuff. I want to know what it's like to have that kind of experience as a mom. And I fear that in the United States of America, as amazing as our country is in its potential, in my lifetime, I may never have a single day that I will not have one element of that fear exist for me with my husband and my son.
Allison, you have a son also. How do you feel?
Yeah,
and has he asked you? You have two. Had they asked you about what happened to Ahmaud, and are they concerned?
Are they concerned? So my youngest is 6, so no.
Okay.
My oldest is 15, and although we talk through issues like Ahmaud and et cetera, unfortunately, it's literally a part of their life, right? Like, this is something that they are so accustomed to. It's almost like, well, you know, they're 15-year-olds, they come straight into the internet. So they've been seeing things like this. Like, it doesn't hit him the same way. I have to let him know how bad this is. I have to, you know, let him know about how to be very mindful and careful. And I'm in the season of this space right now where I'm giving him, you know, like, parents are impressionable anyway, but I'm talking him through why all of this is wrong, how it shouldn't be this way, because they're just kind of like, oh, that's what it is, right? Like, this is life. This is what it is. He doesn't know anything different, or hasn't gotten to this place where he realizes on his own that things can be different and it shouldn't be this way. I don't know if that makes sense.
Does he talk about being afraid that it could happen to him?
Yes and no. You know, he understands that, you know, he's a Black boy and it's happening to Black men, but my son is a 10th grader. He's not driving. He's not necessarily out there that way. He's just, and he's a teenager, which I'm also learning to see. We're navigating through a whole bunch of different things that are happening here. So I'm not necessarily the, Mom, I want to talk to you about your fears, about my fears kind of parent either. Like, you know, I'm his mom. It's like, Now, the conversations that he has with his dad are a little bit different than what he has with me. The conversation that he has with his friends are a little bit different. I'm more so educating him on, you know, this is what it is. Please make sure that you're safe. Please be really mindful of blah, blah, blah. You know, that kind of conversations are what we're having. He's like, all right, Mom. Okay, Mom, I got you. Okay, Mom. All right, Mom.
Gotcha.
That's kind of the phase that we're in. But I saw on social media, a video of a white man who is gotten a couple of million views now, who he was running through the neighborhood with a TV. And he was just talking about how he did everything to look like a suspect and got nothing but waves. And, hey, how you doing? And he's like, so then why did Ahmaud not make it home? And he didn't even do anything to look like a suspect. I mean, you know, it was just really one of those exploitations of racism and what it looks like. And really, I love how social media is beneficial in that way to help people see it differently than maybe a more traditional or formal channel as such as like what we're having and things. It's one of those illustrations that, okay, if you don't want to get it from this conversation or you don't want to tune into a PBS type piece of conversation, then let's just look at it on your normal social media feed by somebody that looks like you, that is explaining to you. When I ran through the neighborhood, it was absolutely no issue. He ran through the neighborhood and he was killed. And we said that he should have stopped because somebody told him to stop because he looked suspicious. I saw another meme that said racism is the fact that people think that the boy should have stopped just because white people felt like he was looking suspicious. Like that's problematic in itself. That two men said, you know, I don't like the way he's looking. I think he could have been, and we're saying, well, not we, but people are saying, well, if he would have just stopped, then it would have been an issue. Like that right there is problematic.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about current events as they affect the African American community with relationship expert Alvean Lyons, Norfolk City Treasurer Daun Hester, NSU political science professor Carol Pretlow, and comedian and entrepreneur Allison Moore. Daun, your thoughts about what happened to Mr. Aubrey?
It's terrible, and I want them in jail for the rest of their lives. And I want those prosecutors to have something happen to them, the ones that recuse themselves. And my fear is that even though they have asked the Department of Justice to review it, that because of the Department of Justice that we have now, it will not get a good review. So I'm skeptical of that.
Wow.
I am. I hear crackles.
Can you hear me? Keep talking. Just go ahead and keep talking.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that Benjamin Crump, of course, is going to do a great job because he has a history of that. I feel for the parents. I just feel for us because here we go again with something else again and again. When will it ever end? Like Alvean said, don't know that it will. And, it'll flip on us if we start carrying guns and start shooting back at people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, so you can't say that is a way to go because we know it's not fair.
Well, So what's the response then to those? Because I know that there are people out there who go, yeah, but then you guys aren't talking about the fact that black people are killing black people, Carol. Daun, go ahead.
I hear that, but two wrongs don't make a right. And the fact is that when I look at this trajectory, what I think, and I hate to keep bringing my age up, but I think of Emmett Till. Now, back in the day when that happened and I was almost a child, this won't happen again. We are now more aware of it. Okay. Why do we keep repeating the same things? Now, I thought that maybe once we as a community became more politically involved and more educated and more involved in every aspect of the political and legal communities, this would change. And then I look at the video of this situation, and I actually cried because it doesn't seem like it's going to change. And I don't know, at this point, I don't know what to do. We say vote, we vote. We say go to community meetings, participate, talk to people, we do. So what now? I'm sorry, I just feel so helpless.
Daun, you were going to speak, and then Alvean, I'm coming to you. Daun, go ahead.
Go ahead, let Alvean.
Okay, Alvean.
So I found something interesting about this, and we look for glimmers of hope inside of these really dark spaces, right? And we know that politics can be a really troubling space, and how we polarize things that should just be basically human. But I saw something interesting in the AJC, which is the Atlantic Journal-Constitution. I just happened to stumble over an article, and responding inside of this article, it was talking about how they were referencing the fact that the GOP has had a different response than it normally does in these cases where there's normally silence. And so apparently Russell Moore, who is public affairs arm for the Southern Baptist Convention, said something very interesting in anticipation of what communities like his would respond. Mm-hmm. And he says, whatever the specifics of this case turn out to be, we know several things. The first is that the arguments already bandied about social media that Aubrey wasn't a choir boy are revolting. We have heard such before with the Trayvon Martin case and in almost every case since. For all I know, Aubrey was a choir boy. But even if he were the complete opposite, let's suppose just for the sake of argument, this is no grounds to be chased down and shot by private citizens. There is no, under any Christian vision of justice, situation in which the mob murder of a man can be morally right. Those who claim to have a high view of Romans 13, responsibilities of the state to wield the sword against evildoers, ought to be the first to see that vigilante justice is the repudiation not just of constitutional due process, but of the Bible itself. So there are moments that I hope that the people who call themselves believers, as is this individual, the people who represent the conservative right, as does this individual, the people with real voices inside of communities that have sat silent too often in times where we needed you to speak up too, that there will be more of these voices that are resonating because these voices hit spaces that our voices don't get to. So I was just really pleased to know that there is a slightly different conversation that seems to be happening where people are beginning to recognize that we've seen the end of this movie 50 times. And at some point, we need to write a different ending. And the only people who are going to write that different ending do not look like you and I inside of this conversation. There are some other folks that are going to have to, our sisters and brothers who are going to have to write this ending with us and sometimes for us.
Let's go to Heather in Virginia Beach, who's calling in. Hi, Heather. You're on the air.
Thank you. I'm going to try not to cry because I have such reverence and respect for this wonderful panel of brave and articulate women. I would say, is this coincidental or copycat? I believe they are hoping to get away with cold-blooded killing and murder. I believe the killers wanted to claim their 15 minutes of fame. I believe they're cunning, calculating opportunists. I believe that they are betting on legal precedents to support their defense in our white supremacy nation. And unfortunately, a jury of their peers may not say guilty. And I will say I am a protester from way back, as you can tell by my passion. I was terrified of being mowed down by our own for protesting the Vietnam War, a la Kent State. However, my life does have much more visual protection than most young men, this poor innocent man's life that was taken. And I will say Trevor Noah and Don Lemon and many other in the Black African community will not stand for this. And there will be some level of justice. Vigilantism, violence, kind for kind is not proper. Peacemaking is proper. But we will not be silent.
Absolutely. Thank you, Heather, for the call. Daun, you want to react to Heather?
I just want to thank her for calling and for her passion. Ask her to share her thoughts with her friends and her circle so that it can expand. We want help solving a problem that impacts all of us across the country. So we need the help. We need everyone to speak up if you know and see that an injustice is occurring.
Alvean. Oh, there you go.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's right.
I thought you said Allison. I apologize.
Alvean.
No, I'm so grateful for those voices. I've been having some conversations with some friends of mine, and obviously, I've said a million times that, my brothers and sisters, are blue-eyed, blonde-haired, all of that. Loving who I love has nothing to do with race whatsoever. But we have to have some honest conversations sometimes, and we've been having some tough conversations behind the scenes about what this really feels like for people of color and the way in which we find ourselves having to hold our breath over and over and over again. And when we talk about what our real hurts are, our real pain is, the reality that there are two Americas that still exist. My America and your America is not the same America, and we desperately want it to be the same America. It's not because we don't believe in the promise of America. It's just that we're still chasing the promise, and you've already caught it. We want to know what it's like to be able to catch the promise of America in our lifetime and to not have to think about things that have anything to do outside of when it comes to justice, it's right or it's wrong. But there's not a third factor associated with that. Do you have money? Do you not have money? Are you a woman? Are you a man? Are you white? Are you black? Are you Latino? There should be no other factor outside of right and wrong when it comes to justice. And we are still waiting for the day that that can be true for all of us. It is easier to be rich and guilty in this country than it is to be brown and innocent. So and unfortunately, there are disparities around wealth that keep falling along cultural lines and racial lines. So it's easier to be white and guilty than it is to be Black and innocent. And that is a sad indictment of our America, because it is our America. It is red, white, and blue. It is not Black and white.
Mm. So let me move on. Oh, actually, let me take Nathan from Suffolk. Hi, Nathan. You're on the air.
Hello, Barbara, and hello to the panel. How are you all doing?
Hi, this is Nathan Richardson.
Yeah.
Mr. Frederick Douglass, how are you, sir?
Yes, I'm doing fine. I just wanted to chime in a little bit from the point of view of Frederick Douglass. You know, the African-American community has made great strides, some strides, in the areas of social, political, and economic justice. But criminal justice is one of those where we really lag behind. We really view law and careers in law, lawyers in general, as a dubious occupation. One of the things that I do when I'm portraying Frederick Douglass is I always ask my audiences, how many of you know a lawyer or a judge, not in the courtroom, but outside of the courtroom, or as a family member? When you have a picnic or a dinner, are you sitting at the table with a lawyer or a judge? This litmus test really speaks to how much we have accomplished in our representation in the courtroom. It's noble to be a police officer. It's noble to be, a sheriff or someone who works in a prison to ensure people are arrested and kept safe in prisons. But it's greater for us to strive to be in a courtroom, sitting on a bench where we can set people free. So we can set innocent people free. And so we need to work at this. We really need to work at it, encourage our children, our talented 10th, so to speak, in the words of Du Bois, our talented 10th, to pursue these types of careers, because that's what they are focused on. So far, in this 4 years, that administration has turned over about 30% of the bench, across America. That's a long, lasting legacy to ensure that criminal justice will not rain down, like Martin Luther King said, like a rushing river.
Okay, let me get a response from our panel, and I take your point. Thank you so much for the call, Nathan. We appreciate you. Allison, do you want to, or Alvean, I'm sorry, do you want to respond to him?
No, I think over and over, we're very fortunate to have such incredible listeners and participators inside of the show, because these are people who are paying attention to what's happening in our nation, both historically and currently. And it is true that we have to engage in spaces that are decision-making spaces. Too often, we are on the receiving end of the decision. We are not the people who are making the decision. So in reference to Nathan's talented 10, we've got to encourage our children, much like STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. There are certain areas we've got to be in the forefront of. If we want to change things in terms of the health of people of color, we've got to be part of the medical, the medical frontier. If we want to take care of things where social justice is concerned, we've got to be part of the decision-making around justice, be that, the attorneys or the judges. And he's absolutely right. The judges are the big factor. And at the end of the day, that is part of the reason, not to make this too overly political, but it's part of the reason that there are many conservatives who are not in support of the president, but they want the judge picks, because long after he's gone, the imprint of that agenda, conservative agenda, that is, some people argue whether or not he's really a conservative, but that conservative agenda is going to last for, in most cases, about 4 decades, because these judges are not old. So it's okay that, for many of them, that I sacrifice 4 years, 8 years, because on the back end, I'm picking 32 more years up on my value system. They were playing chess, not checkers. And we as a community of color, those of us who happen to be progressive of various things, and I don't necessarily mean liberal in the air quote of stereotype, but those of us who want to see positive progress inside of our nation have to understand that in the decisions that we are making, we have to play chess. We cannot afford to play checkers because it is life and death in some of our communities.
Daun, how hard is it, though, once you get in the system to actually make the change from the inside, particularly as they're talking about the justice system?
It is very hard. It is because you're still working against rules that are difficult to change because those rules have to be changed by your legislature or your elected body. And so, for me, with the number of judges that they have been able to put on the bench, my focus now is getting Biden elected and changing the Senate, because then you at least have an opportunity to put some rules in place quickly with a legislative body that believes in some of the issues that we've been trying to change. So in changing some of the rules, procedures, and dealing with the criminal justice system, dealing with housing, we still have redlining. In every city that you go into, people are still talking about poverty and still doing nothing about it. So you can sit at the council table. I complained about this often. One of my goals when I was in city council was to reduce the poverty level. Well, the poverty level in Norfolk is still the same. They have had poverty commissions. They have had this commission and that group. But you're not talking about the bottom line issue. How do you move people from one position in their life to another? And it takes time. Yes, it takes funding. But all that we done wasted that. We've got money from the feds right now where we could be helping people with housing situations because of the loss of jobs. We have this survey that's circulating around in Norfolk, but it's not circulating or getting to the people. And my thing is, we should be calling people and saying, this is available to you. How can we help you access it? Because everybody's home. We're not doing it that way. We're putting it on Instagram and social media. Well, the kids, are taking that up because they got to do their homework and get their work done. So, there are a lot of, it is difficult. Let me just say that. It is difficult.
Let me segue into our last topic very quickly, and we only have a short amount of time. But Democratic presidential candidate, the presumptive candidate, Joe Biden, under fire for alleged sexual assault by Alexandra Tara Reid. And she was a staffer in 1993. She says that he assaulted her. He denies the allegations. I guess my question is, is this just a distraction, Alvean, or is this something that once again is going to be an issue in terms of the Democratic Party?
So I am certainly one of those who really believe in the importance of making sure that we judiciously and thoughtfully and with a balanced and careful hand evaluate anything that is considered even a possible truth when you're talking about assault in that kind of way. I believe in that. I believe that we are supposed to do our job. What I will also say, however, is that if given two options, and I've got one person with 92 complaints and a person with one. I mean, it's like the lesser of evils out here in the wild, wild west politically, okay, one guy killed one person, one guy killed 17, which is the lesser murderer. I mean, that's what it feels like right now politically, if people are going to assume guilt. So if we're going to do that and we're just going to decide that President Trump is guilty, and as is Biden, then now it's just an issue of which one killed less people, and you pick.
Allison, I see you laughing. Go ahead. What's your thought on that?
I mean, I think that's beautifully stated. She wrote the joke for me. Who killed less people? So we going with
Daun. I guess
I hate it here.
One of my questions was, though, Biden was vice president. And so where was this during that time? And why now?
It was vetted then. because if you look at it historically, the papers did a research on it when she talked about it before. So it was vetted at that time. And as everyone has stated, I mean, I have been through an FBI investigation and been cleared. So I know what it's like. I know who they talk to. So I know, I mean, it's a challenging process to go through.
Yeah.
So I'm down with Biden. Want y'all to be too.
Carol, you get the last word on this.
Well, I have the same concerns that everybody else has. I don't know why this is just coming up, but stick with Biden. I am sure that as we get into the issues, we will have more things more pressing than something that happened 15 or 20 years ago. So let's stick with the issues.
Okay, we got 2 minutes and 30 seconds left. Now I'm going to ask this question and give me your one or two word answer only, ladies, okay? So Biden said, I am definitely going to make a woman vice president. Does he have to stick with that, or will he lose points if he were to decide to pick someone like a Cuomo, for example, as his running mate? Alvean? 30 seconds.
I want him to do what's best.
Okay.
I'm more concerned with do what's best for our country. I'm not gender loyal in that kind of way, but do what's best for our country.
Okay, Daun?
Yeah, he's got to have a woman.
Okay, because he promised, and that's what he needs to stick to?
That's what he said he was going to do. And women have gotten him elected and going to get him elected, especially black women. So, but I just want a woman.
Gotcha. Allison?
Yeah, he said it. I mean, he should stick to it, and I think that would Daun. I echo what Daun said, and I think that he then needs to find the best woman for our country, as Alvean says.
And Carol?
Black woman, black woman, black woman.
Oh, she's very specific. Why a black woman as opposed to a woman?
Well, because I have seen us do the groundwork. We have learned. We know the communities, both black and white. And I'm tired of us not getting rewarded for our efforts. And not only not getting rewarded, but being able to share that reward and to show different perspectives and different ways of approaching problems. You know, they say that the only way to keep it is stupid to keep doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. Well, let's not be stupid.
Okay. You get the last word, madam. Thank you so much, Roundtable, as always. And I appreciate seeing your faces on Zoom. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next month. And thank you for spending an hour of your life with us, listeners. If you'd like to hear this show again, or you want to share it with a friend, please visit our website, anotherviewradio.org, and download the podcast. And be sure to sign up for our eView newsletter. It's a once-a-week reminder of upcoming programs. We're trying to rebuild our list. So please, please, please go to anotherviewradio.org and sign up for our eView newsletter. Next week on Another View, the coronavirus pandemic and its effect on the economy, a Claville report with Dr. Eric Claville. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Todd Washburn is our audio engineer, and Dr. Barry Graham answered our phones. And I want to give a shout out to super listener Vicki Bright, who checks in with us every single week. We appreciate you, Vicki. I'm Barbara Hamley. Let's stay safe, everyone, and let's get together again next Thursday at noon for Another View.